got a chance to see the new Bill Skarsgård, Anthony Hopkins movie Locked. Let's talk about it right now. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thank you so much for spending time with me as we rant about movies, comic books, and television shows, as well as the occasional board game. I'm your host, Frank Zanka. I'm an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer, as well as a filmmaker. And yeah, we're going to be talking about Locked, which I'm sure nobody has heard of. So, second movie this week that I saw that probably nobody's heard of. And then next week, there's some more movies coming out that are just independent films that have no marketing whatsoever. It's just an incredible time right now, and I don't understand any of it. Before we begin, remember to give me a like, give me a thumbs up if you can, and if you can't subscribe, please do. It is free. Ring that bell, ding, ding. And also share this video out there, because the more people that know about these independent films, the better. All right, so also remember, too, that I am a writer, so if you'd like to check out anything that I've written, you can go to Amazon.com and just type in my name, Frank Zanka, and you'll come up with my sci-fi quadrilogy, as well as my fantasy book. But the quadrilogy, the sci-fi one, Destiny Aurora, has been made into everything. It's been made into a board game, an RPG. It's on Audible. These are all on Kindle. And on top of that, there's also a graphic novel, 150-page graphic novel. And then on top of that, we have my fantasy novel, Tales of Ravenor, the Iron Witch. I am working on a new book right now, and my publishing company is Destiny Horizons. I am talking to some people about coming on as well, basically publishing through me, where I'll run their Kickstarter and stuff to that effect, like I did with Moonstone, with Green Hornet. Anyway, let's jump into Locked. If you follow my channel at all, you know that I'm an independent filmmaker, so I am going to promote independent film to the nth degree. I'm going to be, serious about it. I'm going to be honest about whether it's good or not, but I am going to be pushing as many independent films as possible, because I think that's where the future is, especially when you're seeing what's happening to the studios and the networks, right? So the studios are just losing money right and left. In fact, the Robert De Niro film that I went and saw, Alto Nights, they didn't do any marketing for that, and that was Warner Brothers. So I have no idea, but that was a $50 million movie. I think that the budgets are really going to come down to what Jason Blum, Blumhouse, his sweet spot. He doesn't do any movies over $10 million. And I really think that's where it's going to go. But the studios don't know how to bring budgets down that low, because they have all these executives that are taking, $10 million off the top for themselves. So, you put 3 of those guys in the room, you're in $30 million before you even start doing a budget. So, it's pretty crazy how this all works. But as you all know, because I'm not even going to do a report on Snow White like everybody else is doing. I mean, everybody's reporting on Snow White, multiple ones. And I just think I watched, probably a dozen of them today. So there's no reason for me to do one. It made $80 million on a $250 or $270 million budget without marketing. They dumped at least $150 million into marketing, a little over $400 million. Yeah. So you're talking about $800 million to break even. Never happening. So it made $80 million. It's not going to have the staying power of Mufasa. I don't know how Mufasa even did what it did. But, yeah, that movie is done. That movie is done. But, yeah, so let's talk about the budget on this one, which is far different than the budget on that one. So the movie theater, the whole complex was completely dead. I mean, it was, you could hear crickets. In fact, I have a video where I was the only one in the theater for this movie. Once the movie started, though, like 4 other people sat down. So I was the 5th. And I heard that some of the screenings for Snow White only had 5 people in them. So This had almost the same amount of people as Snow White. So this movie stars Bill Skarsgård, who played Pennywise in It, as well as a dozen other films. See, he's done so many films. It's crazy at his age. One of my favorite ones, though, he did when he is Something Kills the World or whatever else. I really I really like that one where he had no dialogue whatsoever, and he had his thought dialogue was by a completely different person. And then we have Anthony Hopkins, who played the voice. He was pretty much a voice throughout this entire thing. So it reminded me of, I forgot the truck movie, where the guy was talking through the CB radio. I think that was Eric Roberts, where you never even saw his face. It was just a voice throughout the entire thing. And this one here, you got to see him, but he was only in, a little bit. So it was directed by David Yarovesky. I think I said that correctly. He hasn't really done anything besides like Brightburn. And he did another, I think, movie for like Netflix, something like that, Dark Book or Black Book or something like that, about the kids that were kind of trapped in the library or whatever, with Kristen Ritter was playing a witch. So that's the only two things I recognize. And the writers, there's 3 writers on this thing, and I don't recognize anything they've done. They've done some, and they direct and they produce and they write, but most of what they do is international stuff. Like, I think some of the stuff is Spanish, from what I saw, a lot of Spanish titles. But Mariano Khan, Gaston Duprat, and Michael Arlen Ross. So, but I really didn't recognize anything. In fact, Michael Arlen Ross was mostly an editor. So very interesting stuff. In fact, I think he edited Wrong Turn. But anyway, so the script is generally good. This is produced by Sam Raimi, and what the research I did said that it was shot in Toronto, but it had a budget of $3 million. There's no way. There's no way. The internet's got to be wrong there, because Anthony Hopkins, for let's say he did 3 days of work, right? So he did 1 day of all the voiceover work, and then he did 2 days in the car, right? So that was 3 days. So let's say that was $3 million by itself. Gotta be. Even if it was, there's no way he's doing less than $2 million for 3 days. It's not happening. And then, I know Bill Skarsgård doesn't make a whole lot of money, but even if he made a couple mil on this thing, that's $4 million. And then on top of that, you had all the car work. You had to design the car. So on the back of the car, I forgot what it said, Durso or something like that. And I looked up what the title of the car meant, and the logo was the Blind Justice, which was very interesting because the whole thing is about justice. But if you looked up the name of the car, because it was a fictitious car, and if you look it up and you look it up what it means in Latin, because I knew it was Latin, it had to be. So, because the guy was into, Anthony Hopkins' character was into all of these classical stuff, so I knew it had to be Latin. So I looked it up. The word is trick. So it's funny that the name of the car is Trick. So when he gets in there, that's basically the whole storyline, is that he's tricked into stealing a car, and then he's locked in there for not a few hours. I mean, the guy's locked in there for days. He does everything he could possibly do to this guy. He doesn't give him any food, doesn't give him any water, so he's starving to death over a period of like 3 or 4 days. He turns up the air so it's like 60 degrees or 50 degrees in there, and then he jacks the heat up, and then he plays like polka music or whatever else, and turns it up so it's so loud that he can't even think. So he's like a torture chamber, but for the most part. He has no single signal for his car in there, for his phone, I mean. He has no signal for his phone, and on top of that, everything is bulletproof. So he can't break the windows. He's basically in a prison the size of an SUV, which is probably smaller than a regular prison cell. And then he forces the guy to give him his social security number, so he tracks down his family and all this other stuff. But the guy's down and out, but he's also kind of a shithead. He's a bad father, and on top of that, he does some kind of delivery because he needs his van. It's a piece of shit van and needed a new alternator. And he didn't have enough money to get it out, and that's how basically the film begins. So he checks, all the car doors, and he ends up finding one. So it is a contained thriller. Most of the film takes place in the car, but I'm very interested about how they shot this. So the first scene when he gets in the car, there's like the camera goes around the entire car, but it doesn't even just go in a circle. It's almost like it was a drone, because it goes in a circle, and then but you couldn't fit a camera on a drone in a car unless it was a GoPro, right? And a GoPro is not going to translate to like 4K that you need for the screen. So I'm really interested about how they shot this, because again, it doesn't go in a complete circle, because even when it gets to like one end, it like backs up a little bit. So it can't be on a track. So the first thing I thought of is maybe there was a track on a ceiling, which is how they shot the Daredevil scene in the Netflix series, the big fight scene in the hallway. It was on a track in the ceiling that kept going back and forth. So I figured, okay, it was on a track in the ceiling of the car going around, and they could control it. Because you can control sliders now with a phone. It's all it transfers the remote to your phone. So, but even though I could see the ceiling, but you could paint that out. Like even on the little teeny reels thing that we're doing the verticals on, every shot they can see the boom mic, and you have somebody painting all that out. So they could paint out the track. So, but then it did this weird pullback thing, and I'm like, that's not a track. That's somebody controlling it. Whether it's a drone or it's handheld, and it's impossible to have handheld. What are you doing? Hopping over the seats? So I don't know. I'm very confused about that. If anybody has any information about how this stuff was shot, let me know. If they built the interior of the car and then they CG'd the sides on, okay, then that would make sense. But that's a lot of CG work. I don't know if this film had a thing for it. So even if they shot it in Toronto and they had let's say they had a 35% rebate on it, which they weren't getting the full rebate because, well, maybe they did because it's a whole different deal up there. But if they had a 35% rebate, that would make it more like, 9 million. No, not even 7 million. The 9 million seems closer to me. If you went complete low end. You had a car accident at the end. You got fire. It was just too much stuff for it to be low. Has to be at least 10 million. Has to be. With the amount of stuff that they had. They had full driving scenes that were really well directed, I thought. But overall, I generally liked the film. It did dip down. Like, it was drawn out because they had to make the runtime. Because I think it was still an hour and a half. But I think there was like 10 minutes in there that were just a little bit drawn out that they could have cut back even further. Because the concept of the film is so small. So you're only dragging the thing out. But I thought the acting was very, very good. I mean, the Anthony Hopkins, he had so much fun with this that I was laughing at him reading these lines. Because I could tell that he was having fun with it. Right? And Skarsgård was in complete shambles. I mean, the guy was tortured all the way through, physically and mentally, and I felt it for him. And it was hard to feel sorry for him because he was a jerk, but you kind of hope that he was going to turn his life around by the time this thing ended. But yeah, so it was intriguing. For the most part, it held my attention. I did kind of wander off there for about 10 minutes during one of the pieces, and but then it picked back up towards the last 20 minutes. So anyway, that's I'm gonna give this thing probably a 7 out of 10. It's not great because it is a self-contained movie. It's hard to do anything over a 7 for the type of story that they were telling, with almost like a one-man band type of movie, because basically he was acting against a phone, a phone in the dashboard, with a sound coming out of it. I mean, he was acting against that almost the entire time. So I do recommend it. If you're an Anthony Hopkins fan, if you're a Bill Skarsgård fan, I definitely suggest seeing it. If you're a fan of self-contained thrillers, I also recommend it. I thought the character work was decent. Again, we just had that piece in there that it kind of dragged. All right, so that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think if you saw it. Are you going to go see it? And are you going to see Snow White? I'm laughing because everybody's laughing at that movie at this point. Poor Disney. Those guys have probably got guns in their desk ready to off themselves. Crazy. That's their own fault, really, for doing what they did with that thing. They just pissed everybody off. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, no matter what you thought of Gal Gadot or whatever you thought of Rachel Zegler, I mean, it just managed to piss everybody off. And that's hard to do. Piss everybody off. Anyway, remember to give me a like, give me a subscribe if you can. Remember to share this video out there so people can know that this movie exists. And remember, too, to go to Amazon.com and type my name in and check out some of the stuff I've written. All right? I'll see you guys on the next one. Have an awesome week. All right, bye.